Hi, today's May. What happened to March? April. May 14th, 2021. My name is Che Perez, and I've owned internet companies in Sacramento since 1995. Wake up, more coffee. The purpose of this talk, I'm going to try to make it short, is ARPA. That is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, signed by President Biden on March 11th, 2021. It was the first, it's HR 1319, if anybody wants to go read, how many pages is it? 243 pages, which I've read. And then the Department of Treasury has jurisdiction or authority to distribute and allocate funds to states, cities, and counties nationwide. So the purpose of this is to discuss ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. Think of, if you remember CARES Act, this is CARES Act 2. So CARES Act is already done, spent. This is this is the largest bill of its kind in the history of the United States. It was also a split, I think the vote was 51, with Kamala Harris, Vice President, cast her first vote in the Congress to win this bill. So this is a bill aimed to reverse the negative economic and social health impacts of COVID-19. That's it in a nutshell. Now I'm going to talk about how it's been spent and how it's going to be spent. So there are two phases with regards to, let's just use the city of Sacramento since that's where I am, and it's a good gauge of how the other cities are going to allocate funds. So essentially the mayor and city council got together last year, they had hearings, and they decided, why reinvent the wheel? Let's just use the framework that we've already set up for the CARES Act, since this ARPA fund is largely, shouldn't say largely, is all about, like I said, reversing the impacts of COVID. So instead of reinventing the wheel, they basically took, I shouldn't even say basically, they took their funding priorities from the CARES Act and just stamped it for the ARPA Act. So those things include, for the city, okay, phase one of the $112 million we received in Sacramento last year, that's $56 million spent largely on infrastructure. So everything from business redevelopment, old Sacramento redevelopment, gang task force and violence prevention, workforce programs, health, which would include a lot of COVID testing and outreach. And then the county got, so these are funds last phase that were used specifically for governmental projects, not private. We'll get to the private stuff, that's phase two. The county of Sacramento received just over $300 million. And sadly, the news came out recently that a grand jury found that our county board of supervisors approved giving 80% of those funds in phase one, so that's $150 million, or whatever that is, to our sheriff's department. Now, they use some tricky language. I'm not going to get into the legalese of it, but the sheriff's department is holding the funds, which is, the irony is that our sheriff's department here in town actually did not do anything to help COVID. In fact, they would not enforce mandates. They would not recognize the statewide policies or health recommendations, mask wearing, none of that. So the agency that didn't help COVID got the money to fight COVID. We'll see where that goes. I think it's in court now that the grand jury has spoken. Now I'm kind of getting off track, but that's some background. All right, let's get to phase two. Phase two is going to be largely made up of the rest of the funds. So for Sacramento, that leaves about $50 million on the table for contractors and people, organizations and nonprofits, maybe even NGOs. Oh, and I had a good question yesterday with the organizer of one of the largest marches in town. His wife works at a private university at UOP, just down the road here in Stockton. And he asked if private universities could engage some of these funds from ARPA. So I looked into it, and it turns out, yes, the funds have to be used for COVID-related projects. So, universities, a lot of them have medical schools. I know they have a pharmacy school there, a really good one. But, they have COVID projects on most campuses. nurses and staff. So these funds can be used for COVID-related expenses at private universities, but not for anything else. Okay, phase two, 56 million from the city. That still leaves 150 million from the county. How's that money going to be spent? Well, again, the priorities have been already established. Those are published, and I'll put them down below. Typically, the larger cities like Sacramento, LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Oakland, those cities will have a bidding process. Now in Sacramento, the city does not manage their own bidding process. It's outsourced by a company that I've been using for 8 years called planetbids.com. It sounds like it's a website. It's not. They are the largest bidding software company in the United States, I think. So you sign up. It's a lengthy process. It's not just a username and password. You sign up, you get an account, and you can access the RFPs. So I monitor that daily. Yesterday one came out for the arts community. So that's interesting. My job as an advocate will be to let other organizations know, like chambers of commerce, people in my virtual Rolodex know how to access these bids. And what I'm going to try to do, if I have enough time, is list these bids. The problem is, unless you've got an account with like Planet Bids, you're not going to be able to see the whole bid or RFP. So I will try my best to republish some of these RFPs. In my opinion, the city should have their own bidding process, or they do, but bidding software. But they don't, and that is what it is. So that's it. I'm going to focus on the Sacramento region. And if I can, I would like to stretch out through the Central Valley. So that's everything from Bakersfield to like Yuba, Marysville. I realize that's a significant region, but that region probably contains $20 billion in ARPA funds. Maybe half are left on it, but still $10 billion. That's a lot of money. I'm going to be reaching out to a lot of chambers of commerce, to a lot of established, well-organized organizations with staff to coordinate efforts so we don't, replicate and waste time. And that's it. So this page is dedicated to how to engage ARPA funds, whether you're a nonprofit, an NGO, a university, a school, or a business. Okay, take care. I have just tried to synthesize some 500 pages in 7 minutes and 44 seconds.